Hey, ladies, welcome to another episode of the Revitalized Womanhood podcast. I'm so excited for my guest today. Mary Hendricks is here with us. If you don't know Mary from her Instagram shenanigans, get on over. After this episode, you will definitely be headed straight there because, like I was just explaining to Mary, is my content can tend to get a little heavy sometimes. And even though I am the kind of person that does not love that to be the case. Like I like to have some fun and laid back into what I'm doing. But Mary's got the account that we all go to feel seen in our struggles as mothers, as women. Mary, welcome to Revitalized Womanhood.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Oh my gosh, so good. So listen, what even started you on this journey of showing the authentic side of motherhood in such an open platform for the world to see?
Yeah, it was like an evolution of sorts. So my page, The Very Merry Life, is it didn't always start off like that. So it's like hard. I'm getting further and further away from it. So like to do the math, but about 8 years ago, I was pregnant. Like freshly pregnant. At the time, I was also working as a personal trainer, and I really got into like pregnancy and fitness and stuff like that. So I had started off my page initially to be more of that, where it was, if you scroll all the way down to the base of my page, you will find old, like terrible videos that are poor quality. I had no idea what I was doing with editing, nothing. Video content in general wasn't a big thing on Instagram. So to figure out a way to share fitness in that capacity was just not my forte. But I tried it. The page was hit or miss. I ended up becoming pregnant again after my first pregnancy. And that was when I made the transition of being fully stay at home. I had my account at the time that just kind of floated there, and I had more time with the kids. And I think I had actually tried turning it more blog when I was pregnant with my second, like trying to do a little bit more circa Instagram 2018. Like if you can think about what
Right.
Instagram used to look like, it was very blog heavy. It was very staged pictures with products or makeup on, or it was very, very aesthetic. It was very planned. It was very curated. That's the word. And I
There you
tried
go.
doing that route, and it was during the pandemic where I think a lot of us kind of flooded. I think that's where you see a good amount of the creators that we all know now. Most of them have the same background of, we were kind of stuck during the pandemic, craving that, I don't know, that creative outlet, that connection, like whatever it may be. And I tried doing like the curating of like making sure my pictures all did okay, and I had a filter over each of them, and you had a cover image, and I tried doing that. And what I slowly realized, it was two turning points for me. One, there was no way in hell I was going to be able to get my kids to sit for a picture that was going to look picturesque. And it wasn't going to happen. And I used to beat myself up over it because for some reason, not being able to produce a Instagram worthy photo was almost a failure on your part. And I don't know why that was, but it was the world of social media back then when I was a first time mom. Like it was very, it was very influential. Like I can remember it being a first time mom, being on the viewership side of things, and remembering what it should look like. I remember just thinking like, this is what it should look like. And when reality wasn't lining up, I was like, this is ridiculous. And then I realized that like, well, no, I think everyone, actually, I don't know if I can swear, is living in a shit show, and they are just better at editing than we are. And so I was like, so why am I blathering at this point? So I just put my hands up in the air, and I was like, F this. Like, I'm just going to show up. I'm not going to try and force anything. And I'm just going to show my life, whether it's boring or not. And I think that was the thing that kind of um, grew me. Was I had another podcast that I was on where someone had said, you're not strategic. And I like that. And I said, I don't have a strategy. I don't have a strategy. I don't wake up every day being like, today I'm going to do this for content. Today I'm going to do this. I don't. I just get up and let my day take me where it is. And some days it's boring where I don't go many places, and other days it's not. And that's life. And I don't know why we feel the need to like make it seem something that it's not.
I actually want to go back to what you were first saying was the evolution of going from point A to point B to C, D, E, F, G, because it doesn't end, right? There's no end as long as you're growing, which is what we want to do. We want to continue growing. So the fact that it was what it was back in the circa Instagram age of which I know exactly what you're talking about. My Instagram page, Pure Imperfection, I think that was like at 2016. I think that was 2016 that even I was like, oh, to hell with all of these clean white kitchens, kids looking perfect and styled in these outfits. Like my kids' feet were so fat, they wouldn't even fit in those shoes. Like forget about it. I bought so many pairs. Oh my God. I bought so many pairs of shoes for my first child and had his perfectly coordinated outfits and his little bib danas. Remember the bib danas? And like he was a vibe. And then the second one comes along. And luckily at this time for me as a mother, we were traveling internationally. So it was kind of like balls to the walls. I mean, I couldn't control any of it. But then my third one, he's lucky if he has a diaper on. For heck's sakes, he's outside peeing in the bushes. I mean, whatever. It's just
my life.
like, I don't. Whatever.
No.
And it's beautiful when you can embrace that, when you can look back at that and watch that evolution and be so proud of yourself for saying, no, that's not going to bring me joy. That's going to make me crazy. This is going to bring me joy.
Yeah, it was exhausting. I think that's just what it was. It's exhausting to be someone that you're not. Like at the end of the day, if you really are thinking about it, you're masking. Like that's just what it is. We do that as people in general, but when you are trying to create your page, you honestly are trying to create a reflection of yourself. And so to do that, but then it's not a reflection of ourselves. Like it wasn't. For me, I want my page to be a direct reflection of myself. I want someone to come to my page, go take a look through my videos and get a very clear sense of who I am. And I want to know that like when someone meets me, if someone, you're talking to me right now, but if you were to meet me in person, I'm literally the same exact person, like that you will meet in person that I present myself to be online. Because it's too hard not to. I don't know how to. I don't know how to just not do that at this point. And I think it was just, there were just certain eye-opening experiences for me that like really made me think about that during the pandemic. But even like, I think back during my first delivery with my firstborn, and it was a traumatic delivery. And I remember after all of it transpired and they had to take her down in the NICU and things like that, I remember they put her on me real quick, just to 1, 2, 3, kiss her head, got to take her right down to the NICU. And I remember one thought in my head was, I'm not going to get a good picture to put up on Instagram. And I remember like, and it was like, but that back then, that was the thing, because at the time everyone was starting to kind of have babies and you waited for that post. Like I remember having like the letter board and like the perfect outfit and like everything tailored. And when shit went awry, then I was like, when life happened, then I didn't know how to share that. And I was like, that's so messed up. It just messed up that we can't share all of the in-betweens, the good and the bad. Like you said, like your podcast can sometimes be a little bit more heavier, and that's needed. My page sometimes can be heavy. Like you can go and you will see like it's a roller coaster. Like I will take you on whatever, but also that's a reflection of me. Like there are just certain times in my life that I'm a little bit in a funk, and there's some times of the month that I'm a little bit out of it and a little bit more emotional. And then there are other times that I'm a little bit like goofy and kooky, and it's just, it's a mishmash. And I don't know why we can't share both sides of the coin when they both exist,
We can. That's people like us are out here trying to do it. Let's normalize it. So I actually reposted, if you go to my Instagram today, I reposted, which is sad that it won't be, I'll have to find it and re-air it. But it was this fitness woman, and she's got these beautiful videos. And so it's a reel of her doing these beautiful videos. This is what you see. And then it switches to like a like really funny. And then it shows behind the camera, and it is a bomb went off in the toy room. I mean, and I actually hashtag turned the camera on an episode I was doing with a gal on here, and she's a organizer. That's what she does. And she's a spend less type coach. And that's what I'm like, if you turned the camera right now, like, this is all curated right here.
Yeah.
I've got a messy bed. This is actually not terrible. Usually there's piles of laundry. There's like, because this is mom's room. So mom's room is where everything goes to die, right? Everything, all the kids are in the bed. Have you changed the pee sheets yet? I mean, right? Everything. And so if we were all turning the camera, but that's what your page is. It is, you're not having to turn the camera because it's legitimately on what is actually happening. And I find that so refreshing, so inspiring. But do you know what's even funnier is you're doing it in a way that I don't even think I could do. You're capturing it so well and so beautifully that I'm like, oh my gosh, if I did it, it would look like circa 19 or 2016 camera phone trying to videotape something. It would feel like I still have that comparison angst of it wouldn't look as good as Mary's if I showed my authentic. And we are broken. We are broken. We've been so manipulated. Oh.
I do the same exact thing. I think, I even did it yesterday. Like I did it yesterday where I was like, I don't have anything of value to share. But I was like, I do. I got so stuck in my head yesterday that I really was barely on. And I was like, but it happens to all of us where we just are kind of like, you compare to everyone and it will always feel that way. But I think, you know what, it's gotten easier for me. I always say it, but I feel like I'm a better mom as a 3 kids than I do with 1 kid because I don't have time to care as much anymore. Right. So I'm just like, whatever. It is what it is.
It's true.
Yeah.
That's what's so funny. There's a guy on Instagram that does first child, second child, third child, and it's boys. So for me, that's like 100%. And it's firstborn, secondborn, third. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this could not be more accurate. Like he sees me, he sees my boys. This is exactly what's happening in life. So I love these content creators that are coming up with showing like and making fun of the things that are just truths, right? So the funny thing I was going to tell you, so I don't know if you've noticed yet, but I am sipping from 2 different drinks. Like, I've got my collagen over here. I've got my protein powder over here. And I'm like, and there was, I think it was Dude Dad, his wife did one with her friend. And they were on the phone trying to plan a get together. Like these moms were like, let's get together sometime. And my girlfriend in Minnesota and I were just going through this. And we're like, okay, May's no good. What about June? Oh, June, we've got this. And all the while, the one mom's pumping while she's doing it. And she's like baking bread and pumping, whatever. And the other mom, every scene you see her, she's drinking a different drink. She's got a Stanley or she's got her collagen or she's got whatever. And they're like, so it ends up and they're like, oh, May of 2025. I can do May of 2025. It's wide open. Pencil it in. Not even a pen. Pencil it in. And I was dying, but these are our truths. And so I want to talk about your newer segment, which is I will be your birth control.
Yes.
I am happy to be your birth control. And I know it started because of haters. I'm sure that's where it started. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I actually have to, I skipped the last 2 weeks because yesterday I was in no mood to do anything. And then the week before that, my stupid Instagram wasn't posting stuff. But I'm trying every Monday if I can. Although I shouldn't commit to things because I do this.
Never
and
commit.
then I don't commit because then life happen. So I don't have strategy, but I have ideas. And when I have an idea, I will just run it with it until one day it just fizzles out. But it's just, I'm happy to be your birth control because like you said, it did start because of hate where I posted up, I don't know, it was a video of me trying to eat 2 hard-boiled eggs. And it's really not a fancy video. It's not a well thought out video. It really was nothing. It was just me videoing. I think I was vlogging for the day. And my kids are out of sight. You just can hear their voices. And I'm trying to crack and open a hard boiled eggs for myself. And my one child is like, can I have it? So I'm like, okay, well, I give that to them. And then I'm about to now crack open the second one. And as I'm doing that, then my second child asks for that egg. And I'm like, my God. So I just point of view, you're trying to meet your basic needs. And so I put that up on Instagram and that went viral. Like it went crazy. I don't even know what it's at this point. It's like something, I don't even know, almost 10 million. It's insane. But people got really angry at it being like, no, mom, like and don't, and not that I disagree, but they're like, you need to take care of you. You need to be putting your first.
But duh. Like,
duh.
Obviously.
Duh. But sometimes it's not. And that's the stuff.
It's like triggering for them.
Well, and for some moms though, but like, that's the stuff that you're saying. Like some moms don't like, yes, we understand that we need to take care of ourselves. We understand that.
Sometimes
yes,
you can't.
Sometimes my child wants my hard-boiled egg and my kids are picky as all hell. And if they want my freaking food, they're getting my freaking food. And then I will go find something else for myself. And that's like the whole point of it is like, I even did one where it was like, I followed someone who was like, what I tell women to succeed or something is like waking up at 4 a.m. and getting a workout and like all of these, like, this is what I do. And then I journal for 30 minutes. And I'm like, okay, like, yes, that sounds ideal, but putting it into reality, there are quirks that it doesn't work as easily for everyone. And to say that that's a one size fits all is just not realistic. But with that video, I had a lot of people that were not parents yet that I don't think they understand the inner workings of motherhood. They were like, yeah, no, this is why I'm not going to become a parent. Like I would never be able to share my food. And it was a lot of like early 20-year-olds and whatever. And every time they would, I'm like, I'm happy to have helped you out because if your threshold for saying that you want to like punch a child is that you don't want to share your food, then maybe it's probably best that I'm very proud of you for being self-aware. Like that's your crap because it's going to get far worse than that if that is your threshold. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like that's the whole thing. It's like, this is not like a jab to say that like, if you don't want kids, I am not someone that is going to try and convince you to have kids. Having kids is not something that I think anyone should ever feel convinced on. It regardless of my content and what I put out there, if you want kids, you're gonna have kids. It doesn't matter what anyone says to you. If it's something you want, it's gonna happen. But if you're looking for something to kind of remind you that maybe this isn't the time, maybe I'm not in the place that I need to be mentally, physically, whatever it may be, then I'm happy to help you out because sometimes the pressure from other people can be immense. And, or just in general, maybe it's going to prepare you. Like that's my biggest thing is like, if you're going into motherhood better prepared, then good. If that makes give you an eye-opening experience. If you think that's negative, but it still opened your eyes, then good. Like I'm glad because that's what I would like. So anyway, I've just been running with, I'm going to give you stories from, I call them tales from the trenches of just like random things that I have to do that are like, if you can't handle this, like I shared one of like, I have a light switch turner oner. I think I called it that. It's like a big finger pointer from like the Dollar Tree. And I shared it that I keep it in the bathroom because it's like this big stick because my kids, I don't have a lock on my bathroom door downstairs. My kids will just come in while I'm going to the bathroom and shut off the lights on me and close the door and think it's the funniest thing. So I have like a giant like stick in order to turn the lights back on that I keep next to the toilet. So I'm like, it's things like that. Or I love it. The first one I did was my kids, we had a smell. There's nothing worse than having a mystery smell in your house. And my kids are 6, 4, and 2. So for everyone listening, I'm still in the little kid years, but there was a mystery smell and there's nothing worse. And you always ask yourself, it's like, is it rotten fruit? Is it a bad apple that went under the couch? Did they leave a milk bottle somewhere? Yeah. Like, what is it? We couldn't find it. I looked everywhere and we still couldn't find it. But what we could tell was that it was coming more from like the area of our basement. And so we're like, I don't know what it is, but we also have mice. We've had a mouse in our house. So we're like, oh God, did a mouse die in the wall? Like it started to smell like decay and it only was getting worse and worse and worse. So my husband and I were like about to lose our minds. And I think I was upstairs. I was getting changed or something. And all of a sudden my husband comes upstairs and he's like, I found it. And I said, what? And he said, I found the smell. My kids went down in the basement and I guess they were playing. And we have like a little fridge down there. And there's a freezer on it. There's a freezer. And there's child locks. We've put baby locks in it because we keep beer in it. It's not because they're not going to get an open beer, but they're probably going to play with it or throw it or something. So we lock all that in this little fridge. But in the freezer, we also had a lock on it because we have frozen stuff in there, frozen meat. And I guess my kids took all of the frozen meat out. My 6-year-old must have managed to get it out, took it out and shoved it into a drawer, a box, something down the basement. And so it was rotting.
That smell does not go away.
No.
You have to burn everything. So at that point, you burned your house down and you were out.
Yeah, I should have. But like, that was my first story of being like, well, what the hell? But I have other ones. I have one where my 2-year-old fell over, pinched my nipple. And I didn't know that she was pinching my nipple because apparently breastfeeding has made those puppies numb at this point. So I don't know. I got stories. But again, if you hear this and you're like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm cut out for that. I'm happy to provide that for you.
You're not.
Because I'm glad. Yeah. Then fine. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong. I don't even know if I'm still cut out with it, but I'm stuck with them at this point. I got to deal with it.
I came home, or I didn't come home. I had my third. And it was my first emergency C-section. The other two were vaginal deliveries, and this one was an emergency C-section. And so I remember with every one of them thinking, even just putting them into the car seat for the first time, and you're like, you know, I remember thinking with both my first two, that car seat's going to be what kills you. Like, you're too small to be in there, right? They look so helpless and tiny. I'm like, this can't be okay. But this third one, the nurses kept asking me if I was ready to go home. And you get 5 days for a C-section, ladies. You get 5 whole days. Don't you dare let them kick you out of there any sooner. You stay and you eat the good food. You have them wait on you. And I every day they'd be like, so you ready to go home? And I'm like, no, I know what's waiting for me out there. But with this new baby, my third baby, and this isn't like over like, you know, some people have them 2 years in between or whatever, like quick. I have a 12-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 3-year-old. So this was a huge gap. So I think it worked opposite. You would think I would know what I was like, I am so ill prepared to go home with this child because now not only do I not know what to do with him, like, you know, you forget how to hold a baby. You do. You kind of, it gets weird. You forget how to do it. I'm like, not only am I now dealing with that, but I have postpartum depression, which I realized, which is funny, your story, because I realized I had it when I was not wanting to take his first picture with his cute little outfit and his little name board. And I was just like, I can't, but that's me. I wanted to do that. I was ready to do it. I had these brands that had sent me things to do this with. And I was like, oh, that's not happening. That's not going to be a thing. And I was like, you guys are just letting me take this baby home. You don't know, I could be the worst person on the planet. I don't know that I'm okay with this, you know?
I know.
And we all have those thoughts. And I think if you don't have those thoughts, you haven't been through enough.
Yeah. Even, I did put out, I didn't share it on stories, but I did put it on TikTok. I did another episode of I'm Happy to Be Your Birth Control. And I didn't know what music to put to it because I talked about 3 things in it, but I looked like hell. I was like tired, but I said, you might be wondering why I look like this. Is it because my period just started? Possibly. And after 3 kids, that's like hell on earth at this point. I don't know what the hell my body is doing. It's shutting down. But first off, I was like, so is it my period? Probably. Second, is it intrusive thoughts? Yeah, my youngest had a cough like 2 nights ago, but intrusive thoughts, man, are just, they don't stop. And I'm past 2 years postpartum and stuff like that. So it's just an ongoing thing. At this point, I think it's just worries and fears of motherhood that just infiltrates my brain. But that she had a cough and it was fine. She was fine, but I just couldn't fall asleep. I was like, oh God, I should keep watching her. I don't know what's going on. And then the last one was like, I got hemorrhoids. flaring up at this point. So I'm trying to talk about intrusive thoughts and buttholes at this point. I'm like, I don't know what music to put. I don't know what to put to this. Yeah, I was like, because at one point I'm like, you could tell I'm about to start crying about like the anxiety, but then I'm like, I'm not going to do that. But then I go into like preparation age, and I'm like, I don't know what music to put to this at this one. But anyway, if you're not wanting any of what I just mentioned, it's just but it was
Stay
real
away.
life. I was like, I'm not even going to try it.
I want so much more of that. It's not even funny. That's what I'm here for. I'm so here for that. And that's why you have the followers you have, because we're so here for that. It's like that meme that says women don't have time to have like girl time or best friends, whatever, which I don't agree with. I'm an advocate for managing your time, prioritizing your time, whatever. But just like I said earlier, my girlfriend and I, we cannot schedule a get together because our families, our lives are just so different that this year it won't work out. But it says best friends is sending memes in the middle of the night to each other, right? Just sending reels in the middle of the night to each other. And I'm like, you are who I send. And I love that. And I appreciate that from you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know everybody does. Well, other than the hater hates, but now they've given us such even better content. Like the haters, they do us those favors where we get like pure gold out of the things that they comment on. It's like, if you thought, wait, just you wait.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. It's like, and you know, turning into that, but like, being on social media, and I'm sure you probably have people here listening, but like you yourself are on social media. It's just like, that's one of the things, like, but I always hear about like people saying like, well, I don't have a tough enough skin for social media and stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't have one either. Like, it's not like I'm immune to it, but I just have realized a few things, and it kind of goes hand in hand with having more kids. Like, I'm a better mother now with 3 kids than I was at 1. Like, that, not that I was a bad mom, but your priorities are different. You realize what matters now versus what probably didn't matter then that you thought mattered. But same thing with having a following. Like, I'm a better person today with a larger following than I was beforehand, because I've realized, like, I'm not going to take anything personally from people that don't actually know me personally. So why on earth would I even do that? And secondly, you just kind of learn to like, you use it to your advantage. You just realize that there are people out there that have no clue, and you're not going to change their mind. It's not like you're going out there to try and make anything, but use it to your advantage. Now, if someone's going to make a comment to you, use it to your advantage and respond back, make something out of it, make a point, do whatever you need to. But that's just how I look at it. I'm like, okay, you guys are giving me content. Like, keep going. We're going to have fun with this one.
How do you balance what you share versus what you don't? I think when I very first started Pure Imperfection, which is funny, I actually started as a blog as well. I had a blog, WordPress. And one of the blog posts on it is, when is too much sharing too much, or something like that. Anyway, along those lines, right? Because it was at a time when my 2-year-old, my middle child, who is 9 now, was grabbing the poop out of his diaper and wiping it everywhere. I mean, you know, that phase. And it was interesting because now I would have no problem sharing about that kind of stuff. I would have no problem talking about like the horrors of a C-section or vaginal birth or what, you know what I mean? Like, I think like you say, we've been in the trenches together. I mean, once you've gone through some things, you just become unaffected by the fact that they're shocking to people who have not, right? Because you've been through it. So it kind of, we take it on ourselves to be like, well, everybody's been through this, right? We can all commiserate in this together, right? But then you forget, well, no, some people don't. And it was at that time, I think my little sister was like, oh, thank you, I'm never having kids. And I'm like, oh, but this was years ago. Yeah. So where do you draw the line?
Where do you draw the line? Well, that's definitely been, I draw the line, and I think with people on social media, especially, you really have to be very self-aware. So you really have to be self-aware as to why are you sharing it? Are you sharing it because you are either trying to seek answers for yourself and trying to make something better for yourself, or are you sharing it because you're trying to provide value to someone else, like try to provide info to someone else, trying to make sure someone else kind of feels seen? Like, are you doing it for a bigger purpose, or are you sharing it because you know that it's clickbaity? I think that's a big thing that everyone has to be very aware of, because it's very easy, especially in social media at this point. The engagement factor is a very big alluring factor as to why I think people do push the boundaries of what they're sharing, or sharing information that probably isn't theirs to share, like for their kids and stuff like that. So I've always drawn the boundary of like, I don't really share like medical stuff with about my kids. Like I don't want to do anything that could potentially influence someone. So like I don't share about like vaccines or anything like that I do for my kids, if I do or I don't. I'll answer it in like DMs if I need to. That way I can have a personal discussion, but I don't want someone to come to my page and hear about what we're doing and be like, well, Mary's doing it, I'm going to do the same, when that probably isn't the right choice, or maybe it isn't the right choice for your family, or maybe it is. I don't know. You know, that's it. That's stuff I'm very careful with. I've also started to kind of be a little bit more aware as to what I share, and it's more for my older kids, because they have parents in their classrooms that follow me, like kids that I know. I have met parents that didn't realize that I lived in town. I met them at like kindergarten registration, where they're like, oh my God, like they didn't know that I lived in town. So it's like things like that where I'm a little bit more cognizant of like, I don't want my child to ever feel embarrassed on that realm or anything like that. So those are just like things that I think about. But in terms of like sharing information, if I wouldn't say it to if I wouldn't feel comfortable saying it to a group of friends, then I wouldn't say it online, if that makes sense. And I like, and these are people that I care about, and I care about how, like, if you think about it, if you really personify it, like I'm thinking of a good friend who really loves my children, and I don't want them to have a bad representation of my kids. I don't want them to have a bad representation of my spouse or things like that. But I'm also going to be real with them. Like they can see certain real moments, but also like, I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to like kind of figure out that boundary, but it's just what you feel comfortable in doing. And there's no right and wrong, and you're allowed to like hold back what you want, and you're allowed to share what you want, and you kind of just go based off of what you feel comfortable with, not what response you're trying to elicit. I think that's probably the biggest thing.
That's a good one. And I think you can kind of tell those things. I think when I find those things, when I come across an account, they make me feel icky. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like when it's one of those things that's too far, and I have a pretty good threshold, you know, and I'm also not, I try to not be triggered, especially by comments, because for me, it's people have their own issues, right? People have their own trauma. People have their own, obviously, opinions. I mean, right? Everybody's got their own opinions, but you could say something that is going to be interpreted completely opposite of the way that you meant it, just because of how that person interprets things in their own mind, because it has to filter through past traumas or a relationship that they've had that had toxic boundaries, or, you know, whatever like that. You're feeding through all these different filters. But I think the main thing is listening, and not that it matters, but when I do find those accounts that are like, ew, I can tell you just wanted clickbait for that, and that was like unfortunate because I feel like you crossed the line, I unfollow those, like, because I don't want those coming into my feed. I don't. It's like surrounding yourself with the 5 people, right? If you can look at the 5 people around you and they're all more successful than you, great people, really amazing human beings, you're doing something right? But if you're going through your feed and it's like, okay, so for me personally, this is not a reflection of anybody else, but for me personally, I don't follow celebrities. There are a few that I really, really like, that for specific reasons, but yeah, like I don't follow celebrities. We traveled, and it was so interesting to me that in Australia, I had a woman say to me, So are you Trump or Kardashian? And I'm like, you just narrowed our entire country down to two stereotypes. And they are polar opposite stereotypes. There's a whole lot of Midwest and middle country there. That is legit polar opposites. And I'm like, that's what you think of us? America, we got to do better about showing up as who we actually are and not those two stereotypes.
Yeah. Well, I always said my bit of advice with following and filtering your feed and things like that is, can you see yourself wanting to sit next to a person that you're following? If you were to be in a room of people that you don't know, but that one person that you're following is there, would you feel comfortable being sat next to them and having a conversation with them? Like, that's how I think about it, is like, I want to know that if I don't know anyone and I recognize someone that I am following, I like want to know that, like, that's how it feels. Like, I want to know that, like, there's someone I'm okay with getting an insight into my world, and I'm okay getting an insight to their world, because it feels reciprocal. Like, I feel like I'm not, I don't know. I don't want a friend that I'm going to have to feel like I have to go clean up my house for if they're going to come over. And that's the same way that, like, I view the people that I follow is like, are they that type of person where if all of a sudden they said I'm coming over, would I be going to pick up my house, or would I be okay if all of a sudden they stopped over and I'm like a train wreck? Like, that's how I just view people, where I'm like, I don't want to be made to feel less than. Like, everyone's gonna be different. And I've had that conversation before about like relatability. I have a problem with the word relatable these days, but I think in general we're looking for people that I don't need someone identical to me. I just want someone of the same wavelength. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, it's
Vibe.
a vibe. Yeah, it's a vibe.
Why don't you like relatable? Let's go on that soapbox.
I used to. I was my tag, my page, like, everyone.
I was going to say, because that seems like a good something that would be in your bio.
Yeah, it used to be. And then it didn't, and I had an eye-opening experience. So I used to, like, back when 2020, 2021, it was really a big thing before, really before like the verification came, when you only really could have your name. But in that search bar for your name, you used to put a tag or like a tagline, something that if someone were to type it in, that would be searchable. So a lot of people would be like, Mary, that relatable AF mom. That was me. So that was like my tag. That way, if someone searched relatable, I would pop up first. Or if they searched AF, I would like mom, I would still pop up, type of thing. And that was fitting, because back then relatable was kind of a newer, it wasn't new
concept.
It was a newer thing, because we were so used to the word authentic, honest. But when relatable came into that conversation, it wasn't obviously a brand new word, but it was something that we hadn't really thought of applying to people back then. So I remember I had messaged a girl that I had connected with on Instagram, and we kind of had bounced ideas back and forth off each other. And I came up with the word relatable. And I said, what if I put that as my tag? Because no one had that at the time. And I was like, everyone's kind of like that virtual BFF, your online best friend, your Insta bestie. Like, that was kind of like the big thing, or your virtual hype girl, or things like that. So when I found relatable, I was like, that's perfect, because that's what people used to keep telling me I was relatable. And I had an eye-opening experience, and I listened to a podcast. I don't know if you know of the Birds Papaya.
I don't.
She's a big influencer on here, but she has a podcast called the Papaya Podcast. And she had an author on there who is wonderful. And she came out with a book, but the podcast host was reading a poem that this writer had written. And she said, it's the curse of relatability, because once you see it for what it can be, you'll never unsee it. And essentially what she says, and it's true, it becomes a box, because it's now it's a way to put someone down. Because think about it. If someone all of a sudden grows, like, I've been online for 4 years, I'm not the same person I was 4 years ago. And for some people, I may not be relatable to them anymore, because I'm not the same mom. I'm not in the same place that I was 4 years ago. I'm not struggling the same way that I was 4 years ago. I may not technically be relatable to you anymore. And for us, we're using that as she's no longer relatable. So if someone is growing, that is now a jab to hold women down by giving them, you're no longer relatable. And it's a slight at this point and I've seen it on Instagram, and I started seeing that. And my eye-opening experience last summer was, after hearing this, I followed someone who, again, was another relatable mom content creator. I think that was in her bio and stuff like that. She put up her stories because she was on a beach vacation, and she put up saying, I'm so sorry for the unrelatable content. I will be back to my relatable content next week.
Ooh.
And she meant it in the best of way. And I understood why she was saying it, because she was on a beach vacation. It was, and she's putting up more, probably better pictures, and like the sunsets and it's vacation. It's not your everyday, hence the reason why it's vacation. And for some reason, I don't know if someone made a comment to her or what, and she felt the need. And I was like, that sucks. I said, it sucks. I was like, relatable, because we're not all relatable. I want to feel familiar. I think that's the term that we all are wanting, is that we want to feel like an old friend to someone. We want to feel like we're vibing with someone, but we don't want to see a reflection. Like, that's boring. I see my day every day. I want to see someone doing something different. Even if that different is still pretty much the same, we're still doing it differently. We're still talking differently. We're still living differently. And I think that relatability it's become a box where even moms like struggle on content. I've talked to other content creators on here. They're like, I don't know how to create relatable stuff. Like, they're worried about or a lot of the relatability is kind of almost turning negative too, where it's like, it's bashing of the kids, bashing of the stuff. Relatability has become the struggle. And I like that. And I obviously that's relatable because a lot of us are struggling, but I also think relatability are the good moments too. And it's becoming too polarizing. It's just, I don't think it's bad. I don't think if anyone here has a relatable thing in their term, I think we're doing it because we're trying to make sure people know that we're trying to be as authentic as possible. But I also think that it's worth checking in with ourselves if that is what we're striving to put out there and trying to cast ourselves of being relatable, is make sure it's not a fixed relatability, that you're not limiting yourself. Like, that's my crutch with relatability, is like, it's allowed to move with you as you grow and change and go through the ups, downs, and all arounds. That relatable is always there. It just may not, be the same for every person.
I totally understand you. The fact that she pointed out that this is relatable and this is not, which I get, like, yeah, she probably had something happen and whatever, that's her thing. So I'm not going to jump on her for that. But to me, it's like, I traveled the world for 7 years with my family.
Mm-hmm.
That's not relatable. Yeah. People don't do that. But I still consider myself, and I'm only using this not even to be because you're right, relatable, now that you've explained it that way, I think we never should be in a box. We should never be, I think of people's supposed to's as someone handing you a stick, putting you in a box, right? The supposed to's. The supposed to's are caging you in. So this is kind of what you're talking about with the relatable. It's caging you in because you're trying to be, especially if you're working on a niche, and it's like, okay, well, I want to be relatable to, and this is what we're supposed to do, right? We're supposed to niche down, right? So I want to be relatable to postpartum. That's what I want to be relatable to. Or I want to be relatable to pelvic floor health. Or I want to be relatable, right? That's not even, that's just niching down. But what you are saying, when she said it that way, I didn't see the difference until she said it that way, because I do consider myself a relatable mom, a relatable woman.
Yeah.
Because of our like-mindedness in motherhood and womanhood and the struggles and all those things. Those things were happening. I have a couple videos I was in San Sebastian, Spain, on the beach somewhere, and I was picking up toys, or I was doing the dishes, or I'm doing laundry. I mean, I'm doing all the exact same things. I just happen to be doing it from a different location. So, but yeah, I totally get that. That's interesting. That's an interesting concept.
Well, because do yourself a favor and look on, like, after this, go on Instagram and just go in the search bar and type in relatable, and then go to your top results. Like, go and look at each page. Relatable has become a niche. Relatable has become a trend. And it's not, like I said, so if share all the portions, and that's the thing that I like to remind everyone, but I've also noticed when I follow relatable mom accounts, and again, because it's a niche that they're trying to portray what they perceive as being a relatable experience in motherhood, that, and a lot of it is defaulting to the negative portions of it. And so when I see those accounts share a good moment, they apologize for it, or they say, sorry for not my standard content.
Got it.
Sorry for the unusual content. Sorry for the unrelatable moments of my life that all of us have. And that's the thing, is like, if at any point you feel bad about posting something because you think it isn't the norm, and because you're trying to be relatable, that's not relatable anymore, because you're a
Right.
person.
Check yourself.
Like, check yourself. That's where I get a problem with relatable. Not people being relatable, because we all are. And that's my biggest thing, is like, it's a common thread. Like, at the end of the day, like, Kim Kardashian, she's probably relatable. At the end of the day, if we were to probably sit with her and watch her do her behind the scenes things that we're not seeing, we would see that she is just an ordinary, regular person that has a gazillion dollars. And that's the thing, is like, she's still relatable because she still has to chew her food and poop it out like all of us do. Like, as crude as that is, but it's like, where she's relatable. She is like, she's still just a regular human that's just living extraordinary lives, and she's sharing that portion a little bit heavier. But at the end of the day, and that's my thing, it's like, I want social media to be as authentic as possible. And that's what we need to get closer towards, instead of what's relatable. I'm going to post this just because I know that someone else is going to relate to it. Well, you can just post it even if no one else does. You can just share it because it's a simple experience. And
exactly,
it is what it is. So that's my tangent with relatable, where I'm like, it's gotten stuck somewhere. It's becoming limiting, and I don't like that. So
yeah. Well, you don't ever want to be stuck. You don't ever want to be stagnant. You want to continue to grow. And I think I'm with you. I just love poking soapboxes because I'm really interested. I'm just super curious what makes other people like.
Once your eyes get open to it, you'll have to let me know. But open one, it's the girl. I'll find the poem and I'll send it to you, or the paragraph that she typed, the author. And it's called, like, she says, like, the curse of relatability, and what she says is just so spot on. And she basically said, like, once your eyes open to it, you'll never unsee it. And that was what happened to me, where I'm like, I can't have that I can't have relatable associated with me right now, because I'm like, I don't want someone to get to my page and have an idea as to who I am. I don't like that for some reason. I don't want someone to look at my page and assume something about me, because I am a multifaceted person, and I just like to share it all. I don't want to be limited in any capacity. So for me, I'm just like, yeah, we're going to take that out.
Well, that's what's interesting about when I started on this whole process, the journey. Oh, that's a lot. The journey. You hear about that a lot, but this whole process of starting a podcast, starting a women's community, and having it based around the concept of, especially for stay-at-home moms, because this is a new concept of taking care of yourself first, prioritizing your own needs first. And yeah, you have to give your kids food, and sometimes it's your food, but then you prioritize getting your own food too, or mindset, thinking, being grateful, being in a mindset of gratitude rather than lack, right? Looking around at your messy, maybe small house. I don't know. My yard, my husband hasn't mowed the lawn for 2 weeks. It looks like a jungle out there. My dog literally lays under some of the weeds and thinks she's in the wilderness. I think she loves it. And I look at it and I'm just like, oh my gosh. But being grateful that I have a yard, right? Some people don't have that. Being grateful, living, so coming up with, when I first started this, it's a lot of that same, once your eyes are open to concepts, to new thinking, you can't shut that door. It's almost annoying. I've said to my ladies in my private community, I'm like, it's almost annoying when you learn how to flip the script. Like if you're thinking a limiting belief or a bad thought and teaching yourself how to flip it, what a real truth shows why that thought is not a truth, right? Once you know how to do that and you're doing it all the time, or once you know how to dig into your past and why something someone just said triggered you, and sitting with that and thinking, well, why did that offend me? It shouldn't offend me. And then you sit with it. It becomes really almost annoying because you're doing it all the time. It's amazing. It's incredible, but it's annoying. But so that's the same kind of thing with this when you start seeing these things. Like, and I'm thinking the accounts that you're thinking of are, for me, I have a very hard time with the accounts that show the crap end of motherhood because you chose to have children. It was a choice. They are, and I know those parents love their kids. I know they do. And, but for you to frame it, or husband bashing, I hate, or wife bashing, I cannot and I will not follow those kinds of things, because what is that going to turn into? It's going to create this whole narrative, this whole cycle of that kind of thinking that your husband is this dum-dum. I did a whole podcast episode on the statistics of TV and the dad figures in TV and how they portray dads as dumb and incapable of helping with the children. And it's like, that kind of behavior and that kind of talk is what gets us all in the problems that we're in our country, where it's like we're so divided instead of like gratitude, appreciation for what we have. Like, I know you can't walk around just like, everything is happy, la, 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 la. But also, some of the shittiest times in my life, I am so thankful for. Because they made me resilient, they made me stronger, they made me see the world differently. Right?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, you chose to have kids thing, yes and no. Like with that argument, I agree. Like, most of us did choose to have kids. Well, everyone did at some point. You have to make a choice whether that's happening or whatnot. But I think it boils down to, if that's all you're focusing on, then social media is a beast, because at that end of the day, you know what you're posting. Like that's where it is, because I'd be curious to see what you're saying in your everyday life. That's where I'm like, okay, are you really, again, what is for social media show? And that's where I have a problem. And that's where all of it boils down to that's the relatable stuff though, that now where I'm like, but it shouldn't be. It's one thing, for me, I am relatable because I do share the shit parts of motherhood. I will. There are absolutely days that I will share that this sucks right now, that this sucks. I don't like it, but it's not coming from a place of being I have no choice and I can't do anything about it. Or it's
it
it's
was
not
put upon you.
Yeah, it's more of an acknowledgement of this, that it will pass, but it's true. And it's valid. It's here, but it's also I know it's going to pass, so I'm okay to share it right now, if that makes sense. It's hard. I think it's just the narrative of motherhood is definitely one that, on social media at least, it's a very finicky place where I want people to get better at being able to do both. You can share the garbage side, and you can share the beautiful sunshine and roses. Because I literally, you should see my drafts right now on my phone. I have one that is literally me talking about my nipples feeling numb because of breastfeeding, and I don't know how they're still attached to my body. And then the next one is, I have a video of my toddler running into my arms, and a beam of sunshine is right behind her. It's the most beautiful thing, where I'm like, but that's the dichotomy of motherhood, where I'm both of those exist. I think it's just important that I think we're doing a disservice to everyone when we focus on one side, and we're doing a disservice to ourselves if we only focus on just one side, regardless of what that side is, whether it's negative or positive. Because if you're only positive, you're not doing yourself any favors either. So I think it's really just benefit of, say your truth, but don't yeah, I don't know
Well,
how
because
to.
there are those ones also. I won't just nag on the ones that are living in this, like, everything's horrible. I have seen the ones now that know that this new wave of everything's glorious, being home with my children is wonderful. And that's why the satirical comedians, I
Yeah.
love the satirical ones that make fun of, like, the ones that do that say, if
Yeah.
you're not at home loving every moment with your children, and it's like,
Yep.
you're not. No one is.
No.
Because
No
guess
one is.
what?
No.
It's hard.
You're human.
And you are burned out. You are overstimulated. You are overtouched.
Yeah.
It's just what it is. And love it. And it's great. And it's wonderful for what it is, because those moments, they're not forever. Like you said, they're not forever. They're just fleeting. And once they are over, you have the little hands and the little feet and the baby period for me and the little fat toddler hands and all of it, it's just so good. But yeah, it's both sides. The polarizing you talked about, the polarizing one side or the other. So I have a problem with trying to tell me that if I'm not this way, I'm wrong. Or if I'm not this way, I'm wrong. Because there is so much gray. It's just like the Kardashian and Trump. There is so much gray in between that it's never black and white. And for you to even portray that it is sickening. It's irritating.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. Social media is really good at that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it is. It is so good at that. Of course, we are talking about a very fickle instrument here that should have no precedence in our lives whatsoever. Really. It is here for entertainment. It does what it needs to do. It's a tool. It is just, that's the point. That's the point.
Yeah. Yes. Take it all with a grain of salt.
Take it all with a grain of salt. I had a whole bunch of questions with you, but really I got what I wanted to. I just wanted to have a really fun conversation with you. I think you are so great and I love your content. I would never have asked you to be on here if I didn't. I think you're so fun and I love your take on everything that's going on in motherhood. And I hope that you continue to do that, whichever way the wind blows you, that you go with it.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. That's all I'm doing at this point. I'm just not fighting the next steps. I'm rolling. That's what I do. I kind of roll with the punches at this point. I roll with the waves of life and motherhood, and that's what you gotta. I don't know. I have fun with it. I don't take life too seriously. Sometimes I feel like I should, but I don't. Like today, I went and got a hamster for my oldest. I mean, just randomly picked up a hamster.
Talk about smelling your house. Good luck with that one.
Not yet. We'll find out how that goes. I don't know. My husband called me. My husband called me and this airs and no one can see it, but I went on there and he's like, well, I did something. And I picked it up. And I guess my husband's coworker follows me and texts him because he hasn't seen yet and called him and said, so I hear you're getting a new pet. And my husband's like, what? And I was like, he said, yeah, go check out your wife. So my husband called me and I pick up the phone. I said, hello. He said, are you at the pet store? And I'm like, no. He's like, go good. And I'm like, store though. And he was like, Mary. Like, I don't know. It's fine. I just go with it.
It's their childhood. It's so fun.
Childhood. Exactly. That's the thing. I don't stress over it. And what I've found is like, I last thing, and then we can sign off, is like, I video right now is going viral. Is me handing my youngest a popsicle in the morning because and backstory, my husband was gone for 2 weeks. I was solo parenting 3 kids for 2 weeks and she didn't want any breakfast. I offered. She wanted a popsicle. So guess what she got for breakfast? She got a popsicle. Do I care? No. So I gave it to her and people have gone nuts on it. And I'm like,
my child lives on popsicles.
No,
because you know what?
Look under my desk right now. Yeah, the popsicle wrappers. They're
twin
pops. In my house.
Forget it. My kid he's 3 and he has food aversions and I don't know when it's time to actually call in a therapist, but he only drinks his milk bottle still. He's 3. He's 42 pounds. And every now and again, I can get him to have some avocado or some meat because he's a T-Rex or some scrambled eggs, right? So I'm like doing my best, but probably nearly every time people see my child, like I just did a live video yesterday out walking and he's like, where's my Cheetos? Where's my puffy Cheetos? It's 8:00 in the morning. And I'm like, you ate them already, dude. Like, Come on. Yeah. It's just,
Yeah.
it is what it is. And I'm not a single, like my husband's here. It's just,
But it doesn't, well, and that's the thing. It doesn't matter.
like what, I just don't fight it. It's just, yeah.
Well, and I've found that the stress coming from, and that's what, like, being a better mom at 3 kids versus 1.
Yes.
It's the same argument for that of realizing like the stress of what I thought I needed to do was causing me more stress and more bad. Like your kid can pick up on that. Like they can tell, like, it's just, I even noticed that when I first started on Instagram, like if I got a really bad comment, it would rattle me. And then it would trickle where my family could tell that I was rattled and I'd be snappy or I'd be irritable or anxious or whatever. And that's the thing. It's like, it's the result that comes out of the stress. It's not necessarily the event that we're all stressing on. It's the stress portion that is making the negative outcomes happen. So if we just surrender sometimes and just be like, okay, it is what it is, then we're not beating ourselves up. We're not feeling guilty. Do I feel guilty about giving my kid a popsicle, or you should feel guilty over Cheetos? No. But if you did, then you're going to create more stress for yourself, and that's going to create worse situations. So it's just like, that's just like my big thing of how I parent, where I'm like, I'm not hands off. There are things that I do care about, and I do put my foot down. Plenty of times I have my boundaries, but sometimes I don't. And my boundaries are flexible, and it's just the way it goes. Sometimes
and your boundaries are yours. It's what works for your family. This jumps right into, like, we could go so many different ways with this, and I won't, but I co-sleep. Like, my 3-year-old's in my bed. My 9-year-old was in my bed till he was 6 because we were traveling around the world. And that was his only source of, this is real. I know what this is, because he didn't know where he was waking up every day. You know, today he's in France. 3 days from now, he's in Italy. 3 days from now, he's in Belgium, or whatever. But laying on my arm and sleeping with me was his constant. So he slept with me till he was 6. And that's fine. And then the new baby came along, and he's 3, and he sleeps with me. And you know what? My husband and I, we don't sleep in the same bed a lot of times because I like to have TV on and he doesn't. And that's okay. What works for your family? We're very happy. You think traveling with your family 24 hours a day for 7 years?
Yeah.
One of my friends said, "How do you have sex?" And I'm like, you get really creative. You figure it out. Where there's a will, there's a way. Like, and my mom was, I was telling her this. She says they were down here staying. My dad got shoulder surgery, so he had to sleep sitting up on the couch. And I says, "Mom, how'd you sleep the next day?" And she says, "Oh, it's the best sleep I've had in ages." And I'm like, Mother, you have a house full of empty bedrooms. There's no law. God didn't say you have to sleep next to your husband and never get a wink of sleep. Do you know that sleep can kill you? Not getting enough sleep can cause you heart damage.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that. Like, my father-in-law is right now getting all of these tests done because his lack of sleep is damaging his heart. And I'm like, you made it through having 8 children, sleeping in a bed next to a man that makes it so you can't sleep, the noises, the moving, the whatever. How? Yeah. How did you? You're lucky you're alive. You're lucky you're alive.
No kidding.
You're lucky you have all your facilities.
But we do things, and that's just like a clear example. We do things based off of what we just know to be the norm, and we forget that like it doesn't have to be exact. The biggest thing is like, are you happy? Are you safe? Are you healthiest you can be? And sometimes the happiest is the healthiest thing you could do. So it's one of those. But don't overthink it. That's my biggest thing. Don't overthink. Just do.
Right.
Just do.
Oh my gosh.
Do
just
for you.
Do it. Think about it later.
Yeah. Just don't do that in a circumstance of like
just don't hurt anybody else. Right.
Don't get a hamster. Because just do. I don't know what
Let me know how that follows through. We had birds. We had birds. We did it too.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, girl. Thank you so much for being here with me. I have loved this. It's exactly what I wanted. I wanted to just be like, have a great conversation, and you really made it happen. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much.